confidence, I think, is a mixture of arrogance, of being able to do it and drive. So, I think it was something that we were both intrigued by, and we had enough arrogance, or I guess naivete, to think that we could go do it.
We're live. Shaun Moore, he's in the building. He's at the Casa de Len Jones. You're here, man. This is amazing.
Glad to be in Miami.
First off, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations on Trueface, the acquisition with Pangiam. Absolutely incredible. To see where you've come, let's say 7-8 years ago to where you are now, it's crazy and it's very surreal.
It still feels weird. It definitely still feels weird. But I'm most excited about becoming a new father, which happened in October.
Congratulations. Tell us more.
What more is there to tell? Last year was definitely a year of change. Bought a house, had a baby boy, and sold a company. And so it was, quite a bit front loaded on the first half of the year. And then everything fell into place. And, it was really, really incredible to watch the entire transition of, what happened with Trueface and then into a new organization while also becoming a new father and a homeowner, which you're now as well.
Did you get married that year too?
No, I got married in 2020.
Okay, gotcha.
I had our 2-year anniversary last week.
Yeah. If you could set up your life, you couldn't plan that any better.
I didn't plan it.
That's amazing.
No, it all happened. So, really, really incredible year.
So I want to take people back. And first off, the reason and the way I met you was I was in my senior year of college, and I remember I was taking my finals, and I just wasn't happy. I had gone through network marketing. I had a taste of entrepreneurship, so I knew that there was a better way than just the school thing. And I remember thinking, okay, I don't know anything about tech. I have no experience. I need to get experience. How do I get connected to someone who's doing something big? And I reached out to about 100, 200 different founders that I found on CNET, TechCrunch, all this stuff. You were one of the few that got back to me. I think I followed up a few times, and then I ended up working with you just in the beginning, just to learn from you. And man, back then we were building Chewy, a facial recognition doorbell. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I still have them in my office now, the original ones. Yeah, I think you reached out at a time where we didn't really know, we didn't have a plan for it. So, you asking to help was like, would love help, but I don't know where you fit in the organization, because it was just two of us, myself and Nazar, the other co-founder. And so, trying to figure out how do you provide someone work when you don't really know what you should be working on, I think was a difficult thing to do. But I loved your ambition. I loved your drive. You were willing to jump in, and I remember intentionally testing you during your finals. Like, hey, can I get this done? I know you have finals, but I need this work. And you turned around in under 24 hours, I think, and got us to work. So, a testament to what you wanted to do. You saw it, you went after it, and ultimately, I think it worked out for you, or at least I hope so. But the Chewy days, it was a pretty wild initiative. Back in 2012 was when we came up with the idea to put facial recognition on a doorbell. And it was us and Doorbot, the original Ring, that were in the marketplace, except for we were providing a fundamentally different product. They were taking your doorbell and tying it to your phone. We were automating your house based on the identity of the person at the door. So if it was a UPS driver, if it was yourself, your family, had access to the door, or had access to the house. So we were very, very early to this idea of the smart home, and ultimately, spent 5 years. And the story, traveling different parts of the world, offices in Colombia and Puerto Rico and San Francisco and Dallas and Denver, trying to build something people wanted.
You were just two guys that thought that you could create a facial recognition doorbell
with no background in tech.
Where did the confidence come to pursue that? And when did you kind of hit your first real big reality check?
Good question. Confidence, I think, is a mixture of arrogance, of being able to do it and drive. So, I think it was something that we were both intrigued by, and we had enough arrogance, or I guess naivete, to think that we could go do it.
Because you were like 24, 25?
23.
23,
yeah. Ultimately, just constant learning. And one of the things that I credit to kind of building that confidence is when I was over in London, I took acting classes, and that was to help me get comfortable speaking in front of people. And so I think that really did help. And I treated the UK and the London market as kind of a test ground before coming back to the US to pitch investors, to do startup competitions. And, I didn't care if I failed there. It was, I'm never going to see these people again. It's not going to impact whether we can raise money. I knew that the stage was back in the US. And so that really did help build confidence of just selling anything, getting on stage, talking about something intelligently. And I think the biggest fall point for me, or the biggest realization was, and I'll never forget it, I was in Dallas at a conference, the IEEE conference, and someone asked me, what I thought was a pretty basic question about why we picked a certain piece of the hardware that we had on the Chewy doorbells. And I didn't have the answer. And I was extremely embarrassed. And that was the point where I was like, I'm never not going to have this answer again. And it was very important that I took a kind of a two-pronged approach to building the business side, but also intimately understanding our technology decisions.
Do you think that you have this higher level of mental capability to be able to understand things? One might call it intelligence. No. Or do you think that you just put in work and just
put the work
flashcarded it into your brain?
Put the work in. You can learn anything online. And so I think it's just about, do you have the desire to truly want to do something? And, hours and hours and hours and hours. I think that the cool thing, though, is you're writing your own story. You're the author of that book, and your success or failure is determined by your willingness to adapt. So, as you know, there are a lot of ups and downs, curves in the road, a full transition from a doorbell company to a high technology facial recognition company. So, yeah, I think it's just the willingness or the perseverance to know that you're going to fail. How quickly will you fail? And then what do you do once that happens?
I never knew about the acting class.
In London.
What does that entail?
A lot of stuff. A lot of you work on pitching random ideas, telling stories in front of an audience, having to adapt a story in front of an audience. They interject and say, now take it this way.
So it's like a Toastmakers?
I've not been to one, but yeah, I think probably so. So it just gets you comfortable in front of people, talking about something you're not knowledgeable about. And 500 Startups did it too. If you remember, I had to pitch Payment 24's technology. I pitched their company without seeing the deck prior. So the first time I saw the slides was when I was on stage pitching it. So just it gets you in a position where you can think on your feet.
And then for you to go into that situation, you're on stage and somebody asks you that question, you don't know the answer, and you just feel like an idiot. You think that you were more mean on yourself in that moment than maybe the crowd was?
Yeah, definitely. Yes, absolutely. Thinking back on it, it's not an answer most people in the audience would have known, but it was enough to push me in that direction of, I need to do better. I need to understand this technology better. I can't just be the business person or the business mind. I also need to know the technology well. One
thing that was so interesting being on this journey firsthand, seeing through, because I probably came on, 2 years into you guys working on this?
2015-ish, around that time. Yeah.
It was interesting because you were learning as you were going, right?
Right.
And a big shout out to Nazar Chafney, legend. I miss him. One of the most clever, interesting humans I've had the pleasure of meeting. So Nazar, I hope you're listening to this right now. I love you, man. But the stories of seeing you two kind of bounce around to all these different things. There was the Read Write Labs, that accelerator, which at the time was an incredible opportunity. Remember that?
Got us to San Francisco.
I remember I was staying at a hostel for the Green Turtle Hostel, or Blue Turtle, something like that, in San Francisco on Broadway.
Yep.
And we were just going to the thing, and it was awesome. We met Craig Dudenhofer there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a really pivotal moment because it was sort of one of those times that you got support,
Right. Yeah, no, I would say so. And absolutely to Nazar's credit, it was an incredible partnership that we had, and still do have. But, I don't think either of us get there without one another. It was really important to have the relationship that we had. We lived in a studio apartment in Dallas together. We were spending every single hour of every day together. And we really got to understand how one worked, but in different situations, and where one needed help, and he did a very good job of making sure that I understood the technical components of the company.
It's crazy because Nazar is just a technical brain. He's incredible, right?
Right.
But from the other, you guys yin yanged each other very, very well.
Right. Yeah, we needed it. I don't think we get there on our own.
Do you think that that's a big problem you see amongst startups and founders, is that there's too much maybe similarities between certain people, or their skills are overlapping too much? Do you feel that having that perfect CTO, CEO type of relationships, the perfect situation?
I think it depends on the company. I don't think every company needs, a highly technical CTO. We did. we absolutely needed that brain. And I think, he matured into that position and I matured into the CEO of the company because, like you said at the beginning, we had no idea what we were doing. It was, how quickly can we learn and who's learning at what pace and in what environment in the company. And so I don't know if you necessarily need that kind of CEO, CTO start. Look at Sendos, a very successful company. I don't believe they had that to start with. So I think they were more co-founders that matured into their positions.
Yeah. It's interesting the transition that happened when Chewy officially became Trueface. Talk about that and that decision-making process and what was kind of the final straw to push it there.
Yeah. Very interesting time for the company where we were trying to transition from a consumer product into a technology provider. And I remember the conversations we had in Boulder with one of our investors and advisors who, sat me down and said, look, if you're going to make this transition, the brand has got to go. And, he's a brand specialist and an advertising specialist and a very successful one. So took that to heart and said, okay, if we're going to make this transition, we truly have to make a change. And we're going to start focusing on selling enterprise technology. We need to have a brand that's reflective of that. And Chewy was no longer that. Chewy was a cute little doorbell.
Yeah.
And so went through a couple of branding exercises internally, externally. And my mom ultimately came up with the name of Trueface. And so credit to her for it. But I remember Nazar and I sitting on a bench in San Francisco right by the water and saying, what does this look like for us? How do we do this? We've got 16 people we're working with right now in Chewy. How do we do this? Like, this is a massive, massive decision. And, it affects people's lives. And that hurts because we know we have to let go of hardware specialists and people that no longer serve the purpose for the organization. So we made the decision then and there. And a couple weeks later, we were at TechCrunch Disrupt and announced the new brand, the new products, and pushed everything forward as Trueface.
Did it feel right when you did it?
Oh, we were scared. Yeah, I mean, it's either that or die. So it's either let the company go under or you make a meaningful change. And ultimately, I wasn't ready to let it go. I don't think Nazar was either. And so made the decision and said, this is the effort we're going to put forth and let's figure it out.
Yeah. And then 500 startups. So I remember in between there, we were living in SF. And I remember telling you, I'm like, Shaun, number one, none of us are making much money right now. We're in grind mode, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, I think I should move to Colombia. And you said, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I remember how awesome that was for the founder of the company to tell you, an employee, hey, yes, I recommend you move to Colombia. Because you guys lived and built Chewy and some other stuff in Medellin.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it was a really, really interesting part of the company development when we were down there. We had a manufacturing facility in Medellin. We got a grant from the government to do that, and we met a lot of really, really cool people. And so I thought it was an incredible piece of the journey, personally for us, but also professionally to get to see that type of culture and how they're interacting with technology. And they were building a tech scene there and I think have successfully done so. Yeah, I mean, it was an important part of my life and I thought you should experience it too. So we had no issue with it and definitely encouraged it.
It's interesting that you welcome these new experiences, living in London, going and having these experiences at a really early age, shape your confidence and your outlook on life and the different types of people you meet. I feel as I get older, I just grow more and more confident, for sure. I just become way more in tune with who I am, and I feel that I can go toe and toe with pretty much most people, right? I feel that your background of doing all these just kind of create you and Nazar just going to Colombia full send, doing tech in Colombia before it was cool, you know? I mean, that probably shaped a lot of who you are today.
It definitely did. I think the international experience and exposure helped also define kind of the core principles of what Trueface stands on. And one of the key pieces of the business is ethical deployment of computer vision or facial recognition technology. And I think that traveling internationally, speaking on an international stage, getting to hear people's concerns about the technology has helped to drive us in that direction. So I really do think that exposure at a young age not only built confidence, but helped me kind of think through what does the world think of this technology? What do the people that I meet, what are they saying? What are they concerned about? And how do we address that from a more holistic view of what we want to bring to the buyer, but also to the world?
So if you're starting a company and this isn't facial recognition, this is any field, Do you recommend somebody just go to every conference they can and just sit back and absorb and listen?
I mean, that's what we did. It kept us busy, but like it also kept us engaging with people. And ultimately, I've got people now that are reaching out from a conference in 2017. They're like, it's been incredible to watch the journey. Congratulations. We should catch up. So it has helped me build those relationships, and I think it is an important piece. And I don't know how many conferences are attended in person right now, but it was really, really helpful for us. And we met a lot of cool companies that we are now seeing do the same thing that we're going through. So I think it was a great place to meet like-minded individuals who are going through similar problems, who you could share stories with and keep up with. I know it's not, not everyone's able to do that depending on what part of their life they're in, but for us at that stage, it was very, very important.
I found when the time at 500 Startups was really exciting personally for me because I was able to go to business school. I know you were traveling all the time, so you were there half
DC
the time.
to San Francisco every week, yeah.
But it was moving, and it gave the company life. It gave new blood into it. That's actually what started sort of the Damn Good Day show, because I started interviewing the other founders
right.
of the companies, and it was just a really solid learning experience. And to think about the time when we raised money and got the office in Venice, that was awesome.
Yeah. That's one of the things I wish I would have been more present at was the 500 Startups program, just because I was traveling for work, and so the kind of critical question there is, do you focus on running your business or do you focus on growing the business in different areas, running the business through 500? And, fortunately, you and Nazar were there for the programming, so I could download that from you all. But yeah, I mean, I wish I, had more interaction with those other founders. I got to know a couple of them pretty well, but you guys were definitely, more well-versed in their companies and what they were working on. And so I wish I had been there more.
The 22X fund was interesting.
It was interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't play much of a role in it. We ultimately decided not to move forward with it based on a couple investment conversations we were having. But, they pioneered something new, and it was cool to be part of, that conversation that they're having and to see individuals come together who are there for a certain reason, but like, a couple guys and girls come up with a fantastic idea and to watch them build it on the side.
Can you explain, like, kind of brief, high level what that is? I just think it's really interesting because no one was doing this at the time. Even though Trueface didn't participate in it, it was very cool.
Yeah, they brought together, it was equity in the companies that you could invest in. So it was kind of decentralizing the investment thesis. And I don't know how they ended up doing it, but bringing together 22 plus companies, or what the final number was, I'm not sure, but allowing an individual to invest in a batch of an accelerator program. So really, really special idea, and I hope they're still doing well with it. But you kind of look at 500 Startups, Y Combinator, some of these very successful, Boomtown, which we were part of in 2014. Very successful accelerators, and you've got people that are picking companies after their demo day to invest in. And the 22X fund was a way to say, well, we've got really great companies in this batch. You can diversify your investment through one investment in this fund.
Yeah. It's really cool the type of outreach you get at those demo days. I remember I was at the 500 Startups demo day just watching from the stands, and right in front of me, this Chamillionaire, the rapper, Hip Hop Police, Rad and Dirty.
That's right.
Legend, absolute legend. And I think that's one of the few times I was just like, man, I'm a huge fan. Let me get that pic. It was me and Ash Weenie.
Yeah. No, they bring a great audience of people. They really do. We didn't actually present at that demo day, which we had the ability to at later ones, and ultimately we were able to raise money. So we never did it, but a great experience.
Totally. And then when you guys finally raised some money and moved to Venice and had an office, what was that feeling like?
Surreal. I mean, having enough in the bank at that point to like formalize an office and then to hire some people, it was cool. You're experiencing firsthand the growth of a company that 5-6 years ago was an idea. So I think that was a pretty awesome experience. The first office we had was in the WeWork, and then we were able to get that office down on the beach. And so, just a super cool feeling for everyone to be in one place for the first time.
Yeah, on the beach. I was living in Santa Monica, and Venice is only about 3-4 miles away. So I just bought a scooter and I
I
was
remember that.
thing ripped. It went 18, 20 miles per hour. It wasn't no bird.
Right.
This thing was straight speed racer. I mean, you catch me. It was so dangerous.
It was. I remember.
But I would just rip that back and forth, and we were on the beach. I was 27, no, probably like 26, and I was living the dream, man, out in L.A., Santa Monica, Venice, California, and it was such an awesome time just being in that office and seeing the company evolve, getting big enterprise clients, working with government, it was just really exciting. And then seeing the business expand from doing facial recognition on premise to the cloud was really cool because it opened us up to just completely new possibilities, way more exciting than the hardware piece.
Right. Yeah, it definitely did. And if you remember, we were using ID verification tools for a while for KYC purposes, and that transitioned into a cloud offering of just facial recognition. So, even at that time, we were all still figuring out what do we want to sell and who are we selling it to, and kind of grasping at some of the larger enterprises that wanted to talk to us. I think that's part of the learning curve there is there were a lot of shiny objects for us, right? There were a lot of the big companies who want us to build specific things for them and then ultimately decide they don't want it. And so, you spend 6 to 12 months working with these companies and then ultimately you don't make a sale. And so it's a lot of time to spend. But I would say that the learning from that period has helped drive decisions even today. So it was worth it in the end because we were successful, but it was a massive time drain.
For sure. And I want to talk about the grand finale that you would think about when you're first starting a company, when you think, you know what, why not me? Why can't I do it? And then all of a sudden you get to a point where companies are reaching out, wanting to acquire, purchase, merge, whatever it may be. And you have that realization, you're like, oh shit, like, oh damn, this is happening. Can you talk us through sort of what was going through your head when you first started getting offers?
Yeah, it wasn't the first time, and so it was the first time I'd say it was very real. The company Pangiam, we were doing some teaming work with, and had a few conversations around, well, would an acquisition be interesting to you? And at the time, it wasn't really on my radar. We were gearing up to raise a round of funding, and so had to make the decision of do we go down this road, and look at this acquisition, or do we go raise a large round of funding and keep growing the business on our own? So I think that was a pretty difficult decision we had to make. And as we started to get further down the acquisition road, it became clear to me that if we didn't like the group, if we didn't like the people, it was never going to work. So it didn't really matter the financials of it. If we couldn't work with these people, this is not going to be successful. So really, really important, and that's something that I would look, I would give advice on is the people matter if you intend on working for the company after. And so it was always our goal in the discussion that Trueface would be brought in, we would continue to operate within the organization and get to continue to pursue some of the opportunities that we were pursuing, which was extremely important. I don't think I was done with the work at that point, and I'm still not. I'm still very happy at the organization, and so it was important that the team got to join us. That we brought the entire team over, and that we got to continue to pursue those opportunities. So just kind of ended up being the perfect storm of opportunity, of us getting acquired, of us still working on Trueface work, and just doing so under the Pangiam brand and with good people. We did have other people come in at the last minute and want to talk acquisition as well, but at that point, I'd made the decision. We had made the decision as a board, as a group of the Trueface team. So it really wasn't a consideration. It was, we're going to move forward with what's going on right now.
What are some of those emotions that's going through your head during that process?
Oh man, it's tough.
Is it exciting? Is it stressful? Is it more so one or the other?
I mean, it ebbs and flows. A lot of sleepless nights. Work was everything. Work at that point. At midnight, if I'm getting an email, like you're sweating it. You're up and you're wondering what it says and you're responding to it. So it definitely was a stressful time. But I think as you accelerate through that process and you get past certain milestones that you set from day one, it starts to get very real. Like, this is going to happen. And so that becomes very exciting towards the end of it. And, fortunately, we were here when that happened, and I got to see you and Chris and celebrate, and that was super meaningful to me because you were the first employee that we had, so being able to celebrate with the original folks was great. So it was a long process. It probably took us nearly 6 months to get through.
It's just so surreal for me in that scenario because most companies fail.
Right.
Most companies never see equity get realized, right?
Right.
And the fact that these goons, right, intelligent, smart, but at the same time,
Charming.
good charming humans figured it out, got it together, was awesome, And to see the level of success that you and Nazar have been able to hit too. That's just so cool and inspiring to everyone listening that anyone can do this stuff.
Right.
I mean, I get more confident every day just seeing your story and knowing you and our personal relationship. It's awesome because it basically tells you and everyone listening to this podcast, what's your excuse? Like, if you want to learn the business, you can learn it. If you want to grow it, you take baby steps, right? You work with people, you learn how to manage people, you make mistakes, you learn from your mistakes. I think something that helped you is you seem to have a really good group of people in your corner in terms of advisors, mentors. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
It absolutely did help. And just to touch on that too, I think, perseverance and dedication to what you're doing is extremely important because you are going to fail. You're going to screw up. You're going to think it's the end of the company, the end of the world, that you're a failure. I think one of the more important pieces of that was like you have to separate yourself from the company. So if the company does fail for whatever reason, does not mean you failed. That's a tough realization because even now, my personal brand and who I am is tied to what I've done at Trueface, but it's not who I am. So I think that's a really, really important distinction when starting a company because you do feel consumed in what you're building, and you should be. But you do have to separate that. If this doesn't go well or this contract doesn't hit, this deal falls through, it's not a reflection on you. It's a learning opportunity. So to get to your question, it was really, really important that I had a group of external advisors that I could talk to and share information with and do so in confidence and know that they had, what was best for me. Because you can kind of get caught up in the day-to-day and even with your board, everyone has different incentives and ideally you're all aligned at the end goal. But it can get complex as you make decisions about where the organization should go. And so I had a great group of family that helped me, and a great group of friends that I could lean on and talk to. And as my close friends are all in different areas of the world. They're in different industries, and I think that's really important too. So one of my friends is a musician. Like hearing what he goes through, how he's building himself up and building his brand. It's not too far off of what we had to do, just in a different industry. And so getting exposure to people that are entrepreneurs in their own right in different industries, I think is also extremely important because you can share information that you don't think would be relevant, but it is. It's very, very relevant. Learning from it's very relevant.
Yeah, you have a very diverse group of friends, from your South African friends to your badass Navy SEAL friends. Do you feel that you met a lot of these people through your college experience, or is a lot of it just because of networking and other ways?
I will credit SMU for a lot of it. It was through college, but then also those friendships led into new friendships, and kind of being out on the road all the time, you got to know people who are in similar situations. And when you're young and a lot of your friends are going into real estate or banking, it's hard for them to understand what we as entrepreneurs are doing. It's not a lack of effort. It's simply the path that they took is very, very different than the one we took. And so, you're trying to get people on the phone and to talk to people that understand the problems that you're going through or understand, your typical workday isn't 9 to 5 in a suit. And so I think early on it was important to have those relationships of people who are doing something similar, not necessarily in tech, but that I could talk to.
Yeah, I mean, your class, some of the people that went to SMU that you're friends with, went on to build super successful companies.
Right.
Like your colleagues, they had motivation. It seemed like a great place to go to school.
We're all very competitive. And very competitive intellectually in sports. And so I think, everyone was striving to outperform one another and in themselves. And a colleague actually asked me recently, do you credit your competition to your success? And my response is that I was very competitive with others early in my life. So, I'd say you're in the early 20s, and I don't know when it happened, but there was a switch that now, I don't really care about the competition with others. I care about myself, competing with myself and kind of improving myself. And so I think that's a really important, learning step for me was stop competing with external, influence and people on the outside. Compete with yourself. If you want to be better every day, do it for yourself, not because, you want to outperform others. And that was a change that I think, was very healthy for me.
If you're always comparing yourself to others, you're just always at a handicap because you're not that person.
Correct.
But then if you put in a 24-hour day and you still have energy, then keep working, keep going,
Right.
And it's interesting a lot in the creator world, right? When you're creating content, because your content is against your past content. And from the marketing perspective, it's always generating new ideas, always trying to think of a new clever way. But it seems like some of the principles in business are pretty simple, right? Build a great product that people love, that's very sticky, have an amazing marketing content plan, and then live. One thing you said not live. One thing you said yesterday that I haven't stopped thinking about because we got drinks last night. It was so much fun. Shout out Chris too. And you talked about one of the biggest things for some of these smaller companies is just lasting, longevity. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? What you meant by that?
Yeah, you got to weather the storm. I think the average exit for a startup is 7 years. And so, everyone thinks a lot of these companies are built overnight. They're not. They start off with one idea and you go on this windy road and ultimately find your path forward. And, when I look at the facial recognition market, it really was, or it still is, how many of us actually made it? And I think, if you can weather the storm, if you can weather market changes, COVID, when you get to the end of that, there's a handful of very successful companies. And so you definitely want to do that. It's just not always easy to weather the storm. You've got to be very, very quick on your feet and adaptable. So, important for us, I think if we would have kept going down the doorbell route, I'm not sure, it'd be the same outcome for us. But we had the learnings from deploying facial recognition at the edge and on hardware from 2013 on. So it did set the foundation for even work we're doing today.
It's crazy. I remember we weren't NIST certified for quite some time, and we were always so pissed off because all these other companies were like, we're 20th in the 1 to N category or whatnot for NIST, and we just never hit it. And then when we first got NIST certified, was that 1 to N?
1 to 1.
1 to 1. Yeah. And do you know what we were ranked?
No, I don't.
I don't remember, but we were ranked.
Yeah.
And I remember that being such a big deal. And I just found out recently that Pangiam, now a Trueface is now Pangiam, to see that you guys got #1 in the world.
Fastest algorithm.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah. Credit to the engineering team, man. That's them. One of the things that we were focused on, performance, so accuracy and speed. And when you look at the accuracy list, you're seeing all these Chinese companies at the top of the leaderboard. And the reason being is they have access to just troves of data, billions of images. And so it's very difficult for us to compete at that level and collect data ethically and responsibly. And sourcing that's expensive and takes time. So in 2017, we saw that we've got an opportunity here to lead. Is it going to be speed or is it going to be accuracy? And so we focused on speed because that was the path of least resistance for us, while we spent time ethically collecting training data to try to compete on accuracy. And so, we were laser focused on it and ultimately #1 in the world out of, I think, 380 plus submissions. So super exciting for the organization. And now we're up there in accuracy as well. We're top 3 in the Western world with accuracy. So it did benefit us, and we did things right. We didn't skirt the rules. We didn't gray lines. We collected data ethically. It took us more time, but we ultimately got to the point where we're now #1 in the world in speed and #3 in the Western world in accuracy. So very, very happy with the performance, and hopefully we're going to get another result late next week, and hopefully it's just further up there.
Big shout out to Nazar, Manuel, Cyrus, Chinmay, all the homies. I hope you guys watch this. I miss you. That's incredible. #1 in the world. Take that, China.
Yeah, we were very, very happy with it. And for your listeners, NIST is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or Science and Technology. And so it's a way for organizations to benchmark performance of facial recognition companies.
And the ethically sourced data. Can you talk a little bit about that? What you mean by that?
Yeah. So, collecting data, traditionally, there's a couple of ways of doing it. There's open source data sets online, celebrity data sets, or you can pay people for their likeness. So you can actually, tell someone I'll give you $5. And Google famously did that in Times Square, $5 for a couple pictures of your face. So extremely expensive when some of these algorithms were trained on billions of faces. And so, we went the route of, when we collect this data, people are going to know about it. If we've got to pay people for it, we'll pay people for it. Our competitors, took a different approach of kind of collecting data from different applications where people didn't give consent or didn't know, and so they were able to completely bolster their holdings of data, but do so in a pretty unethical and potentially illegal way. And so, it's just important for us that we did things right. And there's been an FTC lawsuit out for it. Legislation will change regarding how you collect data. And so, that's a massive competitive advantage to have that much data. But we had to do things right. We wanted to do things right and kind of, keep on the straight and narrow path forward of we'll collect this data. It will take us time. We know it will take us time. We know it will cost us money, but we have to do this right.
I remember the team made a pretty good internal system to label, tag, and train data.
Right.
I remember all the employees, we were just told every day we had to train 20 new pictures. So we're just sitting in front, just doing face scans of ourselves.
Yep.
And there's been a lot of companies that have been spun up that specialize in that. And those companies alone are becoming $100 million companies. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, data is the catalyst of performance. And so it's extremely important. I do personally think that it will be commoditized in the coming years. There will be more access to data, cheaper, and then ultimately you've got to compete on something else, speed. So we're well positioned there. Once every company has relatively the same amount of data, the accuracy is not as meaningful. Everyone's performing at the highest level. Where that will change a little bit is the variation in lighting that you have, the camera angles, and how well you specialize in that. But ultimately, speed will become much more important.
When looking back at this journey, it's very high level sort of question, sort of, sitting around a campfire drinking some whiskey, just talking about life here. When looking back at the journey and all the ups and downs, I mean, I remember you went through crazy headache and stress. You and Nazar, I mean, both of you guys had to figure out ways just to cope with it, right? Because you had investors that you wanted to make a return for, right? It wasn't just about you. You had stress from all different areas. What are some of the things that maybe you would have done differently or you wish you could have done over for a young founder in that scenario, bootstrapping and then building up and eventually raising money and doing all that stuff? What are some of like the core lessons that just burned into your soul?
I don't think I'd do anything different because it was important that I learn those lessons and go through those highs and lows. But I think in 2015 when we were in Colorado, part of the coping mechanism with stress for me was getting outside. And I think I told you that in San Francisco. It's like, I just need to go for a walk. I need to go for a hike. I need to be outside. And so that was my way of kind of just taking time to myself, getting away from my phone, from my computer, and just kind of letting myself breathe. So that was, extremely important. Learned it a little bit later than I would have liked to, but, it became a critical piece of I need time for myself to sit, think, and in silence. And that was how I did it.
What are your thoughts on burning the bridges and going all in?
In what sense? Like quitting your job and doing that?
Yeah, like how do you see that today? If you're a young founder and you're thinking about starting a business and you're ready to go, but you currently have a cushy, great job with healthcare. That's something that you wanted a long time.
We had that for a while. Yeah, I think it depends on the situation you're in life. Not everyone can take that risk, and if you've got a family or you've got a mortgage or student loans, it becomes a lot harder to do that. And so, I was fortunate that I didn't have I didn't have much of that to pay into, and so, I think I was a little bit more free to do that, and I'd saved money up from the job that I was working on. And so, I knew what I was getting involved in, and I knew the risk, and I knew I could go back to that job if I needed to. So it's tough. It's a personal situation that you have to make a decision on. Some people promote the idea of, working 10 or 15% on the side hustle until it grows big enough and then making the jump. That's not how my brain works. I need to be all in. I need to be thinking about something all day, and that's how I can kind of craft that idea in my head. So I'm not probably going to be the one that spends 10% or 15% of my time working on something. If if I'm a young entrepreneur, my personality says go all in.
Sometimes when you achieve a goal, you think it's going to be this in your head. You're so fired up about it, and then when you get there, you're like, this is great, but maybe might not live up to your expectations, right? Or
Right.
you hit the goal, so now you have a new goal. How do you think your mind has changed now that you are a successful startup founder with a successful exit? You made all of your investors a lot of money. How do you think that you've changed, if you were to say yourself, now that you have the nice house and you have the beautiful child and you have the great relationship? I mean, you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still hungry. To me, it wasn't like that happened and it was done. I mean, it was back to work on Monday. It happened on Friday, and I didn't even take any time off because I was still excited, and I still am excited about the work that we're doing and its impact. One of the really kind of cool and unique experiences through that transaction was that happened end of May, June 1, I think it was. In October, we announced a partnership with Delta. And then in November, we announced a partnership with Google Cloud in the UK. So getting to see in the first 6 months of an acquisition, these massive partnerships, happen is just really, really cool. And so I think that kept momentum up in my head, and it kept me hungry for more. But, I don't think it was like a stop point where transaction happened and I was like, oh, I'm successful now. I don't think I ever viewed it that way, and I didn't stop to kind of sit back and reflect as much as I wanted to at the time. But I spent a lot of time over the holiday break, kind of writing reflection letters and writing investor letters and employee letters, and just kind of thinking back to 2012, 2013, 2014, and the people that I was able to meet. And I don't think the story ended June 1. I think it's just a chapter, and now we're pushing forward as a new organization, and having that success behind me, I think just it adds to the resume, but it didn't change anything in my head.
I think that people that don't have, just whether it be money or success or not, they're always just chasing it, right?
Right.
And they think that that's the root cause of happiness. But the most happy people are people that are just constantly learning, constantly one-upping and challenging themselves. And a lot of the times we see people as being extremely successful, but those people are so self-critical of themselves. And you have no idea the mental battle that they're going through. They might look at themselves as garbage, right?
Right.
But to you, you're like, man, damn, you Zeus. So it's interesting that the people that are the most happy, it seems that they're the ones that are most driven. They're always looking to learn, and they're always looking to grow, right? And all these things are just milestones.
Yeah. I think you're right there. A lot of people are chasing money to buy themselves time to do what they want. But if you're doing what you want, then you're not chasing money for that reason, or chasing money at all. So I think that's a distinction in my mind of you've got people in the grind and working 9 to 5 or working 9 to 9, just chasing money. And I don't think that's for me personally, that wasn't the end goal. And it's still not. It's kind of a means that now I can buy a house, and create a family and care for a child. So I don't think that's the end goal. I think it's you want to spend your day how you want to spend your day, and if that's working because you're passionate about what you do, then you're as happy as you could be.
I asked you this question yesterday. I'm going to ask it to you again. It's basically a lot of times people haven't really thought through what happiness means to them, right? You're always kind of chasing like, oh, this car, this house, whatever it may be, and you just think that you're happy then. But sometimes people are always thinking they need more, they need more, they need more. But really, they might be happy now. So the question is, have you ever stopped and thought about what true happiness means to you?
I did, and remember my answer last night?
Oh, yeah. Fatherhood.
That's right. That's right. Of everything that happened last year, that was the coolest, most amazing and rewarding experience for sure. And it still is every day. So I think, when I sit down and think about where I want to be in 5, 10 years, work doesn't really pop into my head. It's my family that does.
And you were telling me about how it meant so much to you that your family put so much sacrifice when raising you, and you try to do that same level of commitment in your current relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you realize at that point how much effort goes into raising a child, or two or three children, and the sacrifice that your parents make. So extremely important, but a pretty honest reflection on it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you have to go through the experience to learn. It's just
I have to do it.
all the most interesting people have gone through the most shit.
Yep.
The people with the challenging lives and the struggles and the hard stuff, like that's creating your story.
Right.
And if you think about it like that, that helps you get over it and helps you overcome and eventually win. Because then you're going to tell your story. No one wants to listen to a dumb story. Chewy becoming Trueface, from going to Colorado with Boomtown to Rewrite to 500 to Venice to now DC. I mean, you couldn't write a better story. I mean,
it's been fun, man. It really has.
It's fantastic. Now, this is just I remember asking you this last time we podcast. That was like episode 44. So if you guys want to do a little retroactive where we were then to where you are now, check that out. But if you could have went back in time and told yourself 1, 2, or 3 things at, let's say, 23, 24 years old, when you're just getting started with this, that could have saved you a ton of time, money, heartache, headache, less nature walks. And it can't be, I wouldn't have told myself anything because it made me who I am, which is a great answer. What are some of those things that you would have told yourself?
It's really important who you decide to work with, both from an employee perspective, a founder perspective, an investor perspective, because those people are ultimately going to be there for you or they're not. And if they're not, it's going to create a lot of problems for you. And so, I think it really is a function of the group that you have around you, and how that group supports you and how you support them. So I think that, that would be the most important lesson for myself at that age is, don't just take money from someone because they have money. If they're an investor, for instance, just because they can write a check for 25 or 50 grand doesn't mean you should take it. And I think one of the goals early on in it, it's partially because you see the headlines. Entrepreneurs celebrate raising money, and the headline makes that XYZ company raises 5 million, 10 million, 25 million. That should be celebrated because it's a hard effort, but that's really not a goal. That's when the work starts. That's when the real work starts, and now you have external pressure, and so you want to make sure that people that you're raising that money from have the same goals that you have. Treat customers the same way, and so it's just really, really important that you pick the right people there.
Yeah, and you think that's a gut thing?
I mean, you just got to get to know them. I know entrepreneurs that took on investors that they ended up having to buy out or fall out with, and it ultimately creates significant stress in an already very stressful environment. And so, if you put the work in up front to really get to know someone and what motivates them, I don't think you don't give yourself the opportunity as much to run into that issue.
Love it. Miami, Florida looks great on you, Shaun.
Thanks, Ian.
You got to come here more often, man.
I love it down here.
I love this. Thank you so much for coming here, checking this out.
Always, man.
I'm so grateful. I sent you a random email one day. Just slid into the DMs.
The original DM.
The original DM. And now here we are. And it's beautiful. It's amazing. Super proud of you. Proud of Nazar. Proud of the entire team at Trueface. Huge congrats to everyone at Pangiam. The whole organization is absolutely incredible. Just talking about and hearing your stories just from yesterday about all the unique companies within the portfolio and what they're doing. It's special. And man, like 5-6 years ago, you should take a deep breath and say, damn, man, we did it. Like you did it. And you were the one leading the ship. So everyone was looking to Shaun more during the hard times. And you did it, man. That's freaking cool. So obviously this is just one little notch on your belt and you're looking to do a bunch of other exciting stuff, but excited to continuously have you as a guest on the Damn Good Day show as we explore the incredible, extraordinary life of Shaun Moore.
Thank you.
With that said, we're out.
Thank you for listening to another episode. Remember, hope is not a strategy. Keep making moves. Till next time, peace.